fixed-term contract. Super. Cover letter. Key selection criteria. Working with children tech. What are all these things? If you want to apply for a job in Australia, you really need to know what this all means. So keep watching. Okay, the first thing that you should do is to know your work rights. That is, can you work full-time when you're here in Australia, or can you only work part-time? Can you work for the same employer indefinitely or only for up to 6 months? How do you know your work rights? Check the conditions of your visa. For example, if you're an international student, it's likely that you'll be able to work only part-time during your study period. Usually this is 40 hours per fortnight. But if you're a permanent resident, you have full work rights. You can work for different employers, full-time, part-time, whatever you choose. So this is what we mean when we say know your work rights, because this is going to determine whether you can work here in Australia and the type of contract that you can get. Speaking of contracts, you really need to understand the difference between casual work, fixed term contracts and permanent contracts. In short, if you work as a casual, your work hours per week will be different according to your employer needs. This usually happens in the hospitality industry. For example, if you work as a casual at a restaurant or at a bar, you're probably going to be asked to come to work during busy periods or weekends, and you'll have different hours, different shifts. The good thing about casual work is that it's really flexible, and it's amazing for international students. On the other hand, if you're hired on a fixed term contract, this means that you are expected to work for a specific period of time. Fixed term contracts usually go from 3 months, 6 months to 12 months. Sometimes there's possibility of extension, that is extending that contract, but that's what fixed term contracts mean. You are hired for a specific period of time, and fixed term contracts can be either full-time or part-time. And lastly, permanent work is ongoing employment. That is, you're hired as a permanent employee and you leave the company when you resign or when the company lets you go. If you want to learn more about your employment rights and your work entitlements here in Australia, I'll leave you the link below to the Fair Work website. You have all the information there. I'm not a migration agent, I'm not a lawyer, so I can't give you advice. Seek professional help if you're not sure about something. Okay, the second thing that you should know about is superannuation. You really need to get familiar with this concept. Superannuation basically means that when you start working here in Australia, a specific percentage of your salary, usually between 9 and 10%, will go into a super fund. What is a super fund? It's basically a company that manages and invests this part of your salary until you retire. And the idea is that you can't access that money before that. There are many super fund companies that you can choose from. The ATO, the Australian Taxation Office, for example, they provide a super comparison tool where you can compare the different super fund companies, their different performance and returns over the long term. I highly recommend using this tool and doing your research because it's going to really help you at the time of getting a job. However, sometimes some employers have their chosen super fund and you can go with that as well. It's up to you. Okay, but you might be asking, okay, that's cool, that's a great idea, but I'm not going to stay in Australia forever. I'm only on a temporary visa, or I'm a student, or I'm a backpacker. What happens with that money then? From what I understand, before leaving the country, you can actually withdraw your super money, but I leave you the link below to the Australian immigration website, which has all the information you need about the process, because there are specific requirements that you need to meet in order to be able to withdraw that money before you leave Australia. So check it out. Okay, the third thing that you should do when you are searching for a job in Australia is to know your industry. Research the industry that you want to work for, whether it is finance, marketing, or hospitality. You need to know how many years of experience and what skills do you need to get the job that you want. Are your skills in high demand? Are there any jobs in the city that you want to live in, or you may have to choose another city? Do you need any qualifications or certificates? What is the expected salary level for that job that you want to apply for? Because this is something that they're going to ask you in the interview. Okay, you might be thinking, but where can I find all this information? Where can I do all this research? Based on my personal experience, I have this tool that has really helped me. It's called Job Outlook. It's a government website that talks about occupations, different jobs, the training that you you need, the skills that you need, how can you get into that industry, the demographics, and whether the job is in high demand or not. You have everything. It's like the Bible for jobs. So I highly recommend checking that out. Again, I leave you the link below. Another alternative for doing your research is to contact recruiters, especially if you're looking for a professional job. Recruiters can be of really good help. Okay, and this leads me to my fourth tip for finding a job here in Australia. Start using job search sites and start looking at different job ads. The major job search websites in Australia are Seek, Indeed, LinkedIn, Career One, Ethical Jobs. For more informal jobs, you can use Gumtree or Facebook groups, but beware of scams. And always make sure that they are legitimate jobs. If you're a student, you might want to check with your university, because usually different institutes or universities have a job search portal where they advertise internships, volunteering opportunities, or graduate jobs. So have a chat to your university, to your teacher or a career counselor, and check that out, because those are really good tools as well. Bonus tip, volunteer. If you don't have absolutely any previous work experience, or you don't have any work experience here in Australia, getting that job that you want will be a bit harder. So I would recommend doing what I did during my first years here in Australia, volunteering. Jump on Go Volunteer or Seek Volunteer or Volunteer in Australia. These are amazing websites to find volunteering jobs, even in professional environments. For example, if you're into marketing, you can volunteer one day of your week to help a not-for-profit organization manage their social media accounts, or you can do administration work. I highly recommend volunteering work because this will give you local references. That is, when you're applying for your next job, you're going to have recommendations from people here in Australia. It's going to allow you to know the Australian workplace culture. It's going to help you to practice your English. And at the end of the day, you're also helping a good cause. So it's a win-win. Okay, so now that you know where to look for a job, you need to understand job descriptions. Let's jump on the computer. As you can see, job descriptions in Australia usually start with information about the company and who they are. This is very important because companies want to make sure that you're applying for that job because you're truly motivated to work with them and not because you're desperate. They want to make sure that you're a good fit, and because of this, they're expecting that when you apply, you know what the company does and who they are. Okay, as you can see, then they'll go on to explaining the role and what your responsibilities will be. And then they talk about the key selection criteria. And this is a very important concept that you need to understand. The key selection criteria is basically the essential skills that you need to have in order to get that job. And if you really want that job, you need to be able to demonstrate that you have those skills and you meet those requirements. But how do you do that? You need to demonstrate that through your resume and your cover letter, and then of course in the interview. Okay, so this leads me to my other tip of things that you need to do to find a job here in Australia. You need to make sure that you have a good resume and a cover letter. If you don't have a resume or you've no idea what a cover letter is, I highly recommend getting started with that right now.
Now, please.
Your resume is basically a document that lists your contact details, your work rights in Australia, your skills, your employment history, your education, your achievements and interests. Whereas your cover letter is a letter that you write to the employer, telling them about who you are, the reasons why you're interested in the role and the company, and why you are the perfect candidate for this job. Don't put any personal information such as your marriage status, your age, your gender, or photo in your job application. I know that this is very common practice in some countries, but not in Australia, so please don't. Also, you should customize your resume and your cover letter to that specific role and company you're applying to. What does that mean? Don't use the same cover letter to apply for different jobs. You really need to make sure that it's tailored to that specific role. Yes, looking for a job in Australia is a full-time job, but that's what you have to do. Okay, so once you apply for a job, you need to start preparing for your potential interview. If the company is interested, they're going to give you a call and they're going to ask you some questions. You're going to clarify some details, such as what's your expected salary, and they're going to organize an interview with you. If they're not interested, they will usually send you an email thanking you for participating and that they decided to go with someone else. That's fine, don't be discouraged. It happens, it's happened to all of us many times, and that's okay. Just keep going.
Believe in yourself, keep going forward.
But if you do get that call, you need to be prepared. I recommend keeping a list of all the companies you've applied to. Save those job ads, those position descriptions that you found. Save them to your computer. So when they give you a call, at least you remember what company they're talking about. You don't want them calling you and then saying, sorry, what was that again? No. As I said before, they want to see that you are motivated to work for them and that you're really looking forward to getting this job with them. So you need to really show your passion, yeah? Also, saving the position descriptions or these job ads to your computer, it's going to help you as well to prepare for the interview, because usually they have all the responsibilities and key selection criteria. I have another video coming up about resumes and cover letters and how to prepare for that interview. So stay tuned, because I'm going to talk about all this in detail. Okay, and the last thing that you should do is paperwork, basic paperwork. That is, get your TFN, your tax file number. You should do this the moment you arrive in Australia. A TFN is a unique personal number that you get from the Australian Taxation Office, the ATO. This is for tax and superannuation purposes. It's extremely confidential, so keep it safe. I'll leave you the link below to the Australian Taxation Office. They explain how to apply and everything you need to know about the TFN. You will also need to have an Australian bank account so your employer can pay your salary. It's really important, and that's again something that you should do immediately when you arrive in Australia. Some jobs will ask you to have a working with children check. You will need a working with children check if you are applying for a job where you are working with children or people under 18 years old. This is basically a check of your criminal history. Some employers may also ask for a police check. This is again a check of your criminal history, and this is usually done if you have lived outside Australia within the last 10 years. And then other employers will ask you for a driver's license, and this depends on the job that you're applying to. Not usually for professional jobs, but it depends. So have this all documentation ready. And also your qualifications. You really need to have your qualifications ready as well, and this usually should be translated. Okay, so this is all for now. Please subscribe if you like the video. I have more content coming up, and happy job hunting. Ciao.